we are going to be solving these polynomials. Now, some of them, your homework assignment's going to be online, and I'll address that with you later. Computers need to be put away right now because I need you to pay attention to what you're finding. Some of the numbers will be nice whole numbers, okay, or whole integers. Some of them won't be, and that's what we're going to be solving in the calculator. We've done this briefly with the parabolas before. It will only find the real ones, so there's no imaginaries today. It'll be just real ones. But we are going to use calculator to solve. These will be higher power ones. So if they're x squared, technically you could use the quadratic formula, but anything higher than x squared, you can't use it anymore. All right, so that applies to only quadratics. Now, before you even attempt to use the calculator, you need it equal to 0. So how do we make that happen? Good. So if you're not sure which way to move stuff, try and keep your highest power positive. So x to the fourth is the largest. So move everything towards it. It doesn't have any like terms, and that's okay. So we have 4x cubed, whoops, x to the fourth first, plus 4x cubed, plus 3x squared, minus 5. Now it's equal to 0. So make sure it's equal to 0 first if it's not already given to you that way. Now what we're going to do, we're going to plug this equation into the calculator into y equals. So the y is technically the 0 because we're solving for zeros anyway. So first you're going to go to y equals and we're going to type this in. Now we haven't done higher exponents, so I need to show you how to do that in the calculator if you don't already know. Okay. So this is what we're going to type into y equals. So if you did the reset, everything should be blank. Okay. Or clear it out if you didn't. Right. So we're going to type this in. So x is still next to alpha. Now squared has a special button. Cubed, there's a menu you can go to get it, but if you want any exponent ever, what you can do is hit this little, it's called a caret, but it's right above the division sign. If you have a newer calculator, it's going to give you a little box like this. Okay. If you have an older calculator, which a lot of my class said are older, it's going to, so you'll type the x in, it'll give you the caret, but when you type the 4 in, it's going to look big. It's acknowledging there's an exponent there. Okay, so is everybody clear on that? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, if you do have this little box here, make sure once you type the 4 in, you arrow over using the right arrow to get out of the exponent. Okay. Those of you with a little caret, it just acknowledges the 4 is, then we'll continue with it. So plus 4x to the third. Again, you can use up the caret, 3. If you're curious of where the cube is, if you go to math, it's option 3. So that's the third power. But if you use the caret, it does the same thing. All right. Then we had, what else? Plus 3x squared minus 5. Right. Make sure you use the minus, not the negative sign. Any questions before we deal with the graph? So everyone knows how to do an exponent larger than 2 now? A graph. Now we are not doing imaginaries. The calculator is not going to help you there. Okay, so how many real roots should we have visibly? 2. Does it look like it crosses out whole numbers? Not sure. As a reminder in your homework, you can check your XY table to see if you have any zeros in the Y column. So if you go to your XY table, do you see any zeros in the Y? No, but sometimes you will. So maybe at least check, because sometimes there's one whole number and the other ones might not be. Now, this is kind of a side note, but you might be asked this later. You should be able to tell based on how the values increase or decrease over positive and negative numbers between which two x values they are. So if you see between -4 and -3, it goes from positive 43 to -5. That means it crossed the x-axis between those two numbers. So one of our roots should be -3 point something. Okay. Where's the other one? Where does it change from positive to negative or vice versa?
0 and 1.
Between 0 and 1. So that's everywhere. Every time it changes from negative to a positive or vice versa, it crosses 0. You might be asked that later, between what two numbers should it be? Okay, so I wanted to kind of point that out. All right, so go back to your picture of the graph. We have done this previously, but it's been a while, so I'm going to remind you what the keystrokes are because you're going to have to do it multiple times. If you think you may forget, write it down. But if you get that calculator app on your phone, it does the same keystrokes. Okay. We are going to go, if we want to calculate it exactly what decimal this one is and what decimal this one is, we're going to do it twice. We go to second trace. Okay. Since we're finding the zeros, we're going to use option 2 for zeros. You can arrow down and you can hit the number 2. Now before I continue, I'm just going to write it up here in case you need to see it. So you're going to do second trace. And then option 2, which says 0. If you think you're going to remember it, you don't have to write it down. But if you think there's a chance you may forget. Okay. You have to do it for every x-intercept, so we're going to have to do it for both on here. Okay. Now, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, it says left bound with a question mark. That means left boundary. You are telling the calculator where to look. Now, it doesn't matter if you solve for this x-intercept or that one, but keep track of which ones you solve for. So use the little keypad to arrow over. I'm going to do the leftmost x-intercept first. Okay. Left of it on this one should be above the line. Okay. Sometimes it depends which side you're on, but make sure you're on the left because if you go right when you're supposed to go left, it's going to say error. Okay. I know most of you have driving age, so hopefully we know our lefts from our rights. Hit enter once you're left of it. Then right boundary, you are setting up where it is. So you need to go to the right of it. It doesn't have to be very far. Hit enter, and then guess is get your cursor as close as possible. Some calculators, it's going to let you get closer than others. It doesn't have to be right on top of it, though. If you hit enter, now is anyone getting this for a y value over here? Or some people say 0?
Mine says
On the y's? This, if you don't remember from like Algebra 1, 2, that is technically scientific notation, but that's a very, very small number. It's basically 0.00000. That's 0. Your concern is the x value. Is everyone getting the same thing? Negative 3.217748. Okay. Are you at least 3 point something?
Yeah.
Around 3.2. Okay, we encountered this issue last hour, so I will explain on your homework what I want you to do in reference to that. It should be technically negative 3.22, but sadly the calculators are calibrated slightly different. So on your notes, write down negative 3.22, please. All right, but I'll tell you in your homework what you should do. It should be close. Okay. So negative 3.22 approximately. So if you got negative 3.19, if that rounds to negative 3.20, for me that's close enough, but I'll explain in your homework what I want you to do. So that's one of them. We have another one. So we're going to follow the same keystrokes. So again, you have the left boundary. Make sure to hit enter after you move your cursor. You have right boundary. Hit enter, and then guess. Hit enter. Okay. So this is how to find each individual one. Once you get really fast at it, it should take you about 10 seconds to find each one. Okay. But while you guys are still learning what to do, it's going to take you a few extra seconds. But you'll have to start this over. So second trace again, option 2. Now we're trying to find this rightmost one over here. So arrow over to it, but be left of it still, which will be below the line, below the x-axis. So you can stop anywhere below the x-axis on this one. And then right would be above it. Doesn't have to be very far. And then just try and get close to it. This is about as close as I can get, but it varies depending on the calculator. You should be getting approximately 0.84. What else are we getting besides that? 0.851. Is that relatively the same thing? Just about. Okay. Technically, it is 0.84. All right. But if it's in the ballpark, I would accept it. So those are your two x-intercepts. We can't use the quadratic formula because the exponents are higher than 2. Now, technically, these are the two real roots, which means we would also have two imaginaries, but I'm not concerned with that today. finding the real roots today. Okay. So, make sure to write this down because we're going to have to do it on the next one too. Unless you think you remember it, then that's fine. Yeah. Those are the answers. Yes. Okay. Again, I'll tell you how to approach your homework once we're done with notes, okay? All right. What do we have to do first on example 2? It needs to be equal to 0. Now, I told you on the last one, try and keep your highest exponent coefficient positive. So the highest exponent would be what?
To
The 4th. So that means I want you to keep this as a positive 1/2, move these two to the right. So I'm going to subtract 4x squared, move it over, and subtract x, move it over. It shouldn't matter, but just in case, try and keep your highest exponent positive. So what we're going to do, so we have 1/2 x to the 4th minus 4x squared minus x plus 1. That is what is equal to 0, but we're going to plug that into y equals. How do you do a fraction?
parentheses 1 divided by 2.
So if you do a fraction, now 1/2 is a finite decimal, so if you want to do 0.5, that's fine. But something like 1/3 where it's 0.3 repeating, don't do a decimal. So if you're going to do a fraction, put parentheses around it as 1 divided by 2 in your calculator. I'm going to do the fraction. If you want to do 0.5, that's totally fine. It's the same thing. Go back to y equals and clear out our old equation. If you want to do 0.5, that's totally fine. Okay. 1 divided by 2, x to the 4th. Again, hit the little caret button above dividing. And if you have the little box, make sure to arrow out of it. Otherwise, anything you type in, it's going to keep it in the exponent, which is going to make it look not great. Minus 4x squared minus x plus 1. Any questions before we graph it? Okay. How many x-intercepts do we have? 4. So we're going to have to do this process 4 times. If you think you have the rhythm to it, feel free to work faster. If your calculator's kind of off, write down what you have, and then I'll show you what I have, and then we'll compare the two, and then we'll talk about how to approach your homework. Okay. What do we do?
Second choice.
Second choice. Option 2 of 0. Now, you can do the ones that it's really close to right now if you want to, but keep track of the ones you've done and the ones you haven't. So going left to right or right to left is a good strategy there, but you have to get all 4. In this case, move to the left a bit. Whoops, went too far. If the cursor disappears, just go backwards the other way. Left boundary, right, and then just have it near it. Are we getting around negative 2.64? What else are we getting? Just so I'm aware.
Yeah, negative 2.6.
Okay. Alright. So if you want to write down what you have and what it should be, that's fine for your note-taking purposes. Again, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do on your homework. So negative 2.64 should be what it is. Alright, feel free to write down what you have, just in case you're referencing back to it. Now we have to do it again. So again, as soon as you get the hang of it, this should take you a total of 10 seconds to do each one.
We have to
Okay.
clear each time.
You have to start it over, so you don't have to press clear. You can just go back to second trace,
Okay.
option 2. You can press clear, it's not going to hurt anything. Be to the left of the next one, which you already should be, technically. Move to the right of it, which around the y-axis, and then get fairly close to it. What are we getting?
Negative 0.6.
So I have negative 0.66. Last time this is something about 0.63. Okay. Again, close enough for what I'm doing. I actually think if you guys get the calculator apps on your phones, those of you that have really new calculators, are you getting the same thing as me? Okay. Those of you that have my old ones, you're not? Is that what's coming? Some of it just may be a software issue. So if you use the phone app, so I may give you permission for that in your homework. I'll think about it over the next 5 minutes. That should have new software on it, so it should be exact. So it's probably just a software issue. Okay. So negative 0.66 for that. All right. We gotta do it 2 more times. If you picked it up, do it a little bit faster. But if you want to wait to see what I get, that's fine. I'll speed it up a little bit. Second trace, option 2. Technically I am to the left of it, but I'm gonna move it a little bit closer. .39 is what it should be. If you're fairly close, you're probably fine. Again, it's a software issue. I have to email the company about that. Last one, second trace, option 2. Again, the more you do it, the faster you should get. .291 should be the fourth one. Sorry, 2.91. So, any questions on the process of finding them? Okay. How many of you are using my old calculators? Or your calculator was not quite there? Okay. For your homework only, you will have permission to have your phones out for that, but the app is Calculate 84. So if you want to download it really fast. Your homework assignment is in Alex, okay, where your topics are. And it should be there by now, okay. I had to post it by around 10 a.m. So pull that out really quick. There are 10 problems. Now some of them are factorable, and they're nice numbers. So they would show up in a calculator graph in the XY table. Again, you can always check them. Okay. But it will tell you to round to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. Okay. It has a calculator built in, but it's really weird. We tried it last hour, and I didn't really like it. So there's the Alex graphing calculator. It's not great. Okay. So you have permission to use your phones for that only. If I can tell on your computer you're not doing your homework, then your phone goes up there. That's your only option to use your phone is to do that. Okay. So pull up Alex.